welcome to Daily T-Sip. So a few weeks ago, I know you guys have heard this, Donald Trump went on a Twitter rampage accusing former President Barack Obama of wiretapping his phones during the election. Now, you had a lot of people, most of us with a brain, knew that that was a flat-out lie. But there was a segment of the population that whatever Trump says, they believe. So the deadline to produce this evidence regarding this claim has come and gone. The deadline was today, Monday. But we do have some receipts for you. Now, the press secretary, Sean Spicer, did his best today to backtrack the comment Trump made a few weeks ago. Now, here's what I'm going to say about this, and I'm going to let you guys hear the video and you make your own decision. When you have something to hide, the objective is to create a diversion, and people will forget about what they should be investigating. So here is Sean Spicer now denying that Trump said President Obama wiretapped his phone.
You spoke on behalf of the president, quoting him on the jobs report on Friday. Yeah. You said they may have been phony in the past, but it's very real now. I guess the question is...
They are very real now.
They are very real now. The question is...
I just want to make sure you get it right.
When should Americans trust the president? Should they trust the president? Is it phony or real when he says that President Obama was wiretapping?
Well, again, let's get back. I think there's two things that are important about what he said. I think recognizing that it's the Obama... He doesn't really think that President Obama went up and tapped his phone personally. I think, but I think there's no question that the Obama administration, that there were actions about surveillance and other activities that occurred in the 2016 election. That is a widely reported activity that occurred back then. The president used the word wiretap in quotes to mean broadly surveillance and other activities during that. And that is, again, something, it is interesting how many news outlets reported that this activity was taking place during the 2016 election cycle, and now are wondering where the proof is. It is many of the same outlets in this room that talked about the activities that were going on back then.
So on the same topic, on the CBO report, did the president think it was real then and is phony now?
What CBO report?
On the expectation the CBO report is coming out, about which you said, if you're looking at the CBO for accuracy, you're looking in the wrong place. 3 years ago, you said at the CBO report that it confirms Obamacare is bad for the economy. So the question is...
It was bad for the economy.
Okay, so the bottom line is, the question is, was it real then and it's now phony? As you said, it's not the place
to
let's
look
at accuracy.
Okay, so let's look at the CBO's projection. It said their projection on Obamacare was that in 2016 would have 24 million people on it. The actual figure is 10.4 million people, less than half the number of people that it predicted would be insured were on it, and it's declining. So the only point, Peter, is to make sure that people understand, if you're looking to get a bullseye accurate prediction as to where it's going, the CBO was off by more than half last time. So it's not, this is not about what my understanding or my belief of the CBO is. The last time they did this, they were wildly off, and the number keeps declining. And so the question that needs to get asked right now, or frankly the awareness that needs to be brought up right now, is that if you're going to look at a number tonight, I think you have to look through the scope of whether or not that number is. Now, it was bad for the economy. That was right. You can glean that in terms of the direction, what the impact that it had. But as far as their numbers go, on the number of people that they predicted back then would be covered now, they were off by more than half.
I guess the question is, when can we trust the president when he says something's phony or when he says it's real?
You asked a question about CBO. And now you're conflating it with the question of the president.
No, I
the question is
about wiretapping first.
Okay.
And then we went on to CBO. So the question in simple terms is, when he says something can we trust that it's real?
Yes.
Or should we assume that it's phony? Well, no.
You just said it's real. Absolutely.
How can we believe that it's real when you just told us that it was phony then, but now it's real?
I did not tell you that, Peter, and you're trying...
You told us on Friday that the president said, you didn't, the president said the numbers were phony then, but they're very real now. So how can we trust anything
I think
he says
there's a big...
He won't later say, actually, it was the opposite.
Hold on. I think the difference is the president was talking then and now about job creation, the number of jobs. The issue that he brought up in the quote that you're talking about was the percentage of people who are unemployed. And there is no question that no matter how you look at this, whether you talk about 4.7 or 4.8 or whatever the number is, that number fluctuates by how people calculate who's in the workforce. Okay, Peter, let me answer the question. You're not. Let me answer it. The bottom line is the percentage of people who are unemployed varies widely by who you're asking and the way you do the analysis of who's actually in the workforce. The number of people who are working and receiving a paycheck is a number that we can look at. Secondly, when you're asking about the validity of the CBO report, again, I refer you to the CBO itself. The number that they issued that would be insured in 2016 was 26 million people. The actual number is 24 million. The actual number is 10.4. That's not a question of our credibility, it's a question of theirs. Do you have anything more?
The bottom line is the question that you still have not answered is can you say affirmatively that whenever the president says something, we can trust it to be real?
If he's not joking, of course. I mean, but in that case, hold on. But no, you're asking. Hold on.
Start over again with joking.
Okay, no. But your point is, if he's, every time that he speaks authoritatively, he's speaking as president of the United States. Like it's
more than 3 million Americans voted illegally. Was
yes,
that,
and he still believes that.
Was he joking, or does he believe it?
He does believe it. Thank you, Julie.
I have a healthcare question, but first, can we just get an answer one way or the other about whether the president directed the Department of Justice to respond to this?
No, he did not.
So, and does he plan to?
Answer the question.
Okay, so on healthcare, Secretary Price said on Sunday that nobody will be worse off financially and more people will be covered than are currently with the plan that you guys are pushing. Paul Ryan acknowledged that people are going to lose coverage. So what is the goal here? You just said you're open to modifications to the plan if you find that there's a better way to do it. Is the goal that people not lose coverage, or is the goal that...
Well, again, but there's a false argument there, which is that they have coverage. People have cards. They've been told they have things, but they can't. They keep walking in. The president met with 9 individuals this morning that you're told they're going to get coverage for something. They are told that they're going to have all of these subsidies. They walk in and they don't get covered. They don't have the care that they need. There's a difference between walking around with someone and saying, hey, I've got a card, than I have care. And that's a big, big difference. Right now, when you have a third of the counties in this country that have one choice and going down, and number of insurers leaving markets, then the system is collapsing. So the question that has to be to everybody who's not with us on this is, what is your alternative? Because right now, the current system of Obamacare is failing every American who has Obamacare. And frankly, for those who don't have Obamacare, for those who have employer-based insurance, for those who have, TRICARE, Medicare, it's driving up the costs. And in the cases, especially for those who have Medicaid, Medicare, or TRICARE, they're going into doctors' offices more and more who are telling them, we don't accept that.
Quality and about cost. I'm asking about coverage.
But that's the point, is that you're missing the point. If you keep talking about coverage, care is what matters. If you can't walk in and get seen, if you can't get a doctor to see you, then you don't have coverage. I mean, that's what this is all about. Being told you have coverage, but you can't go see a doctor or you can't afford to see a doctor is not coverage.
Sean, two for you. I just want to go back to something. You just said a minute ago that, what the president meant when he tweeted about the wiretapping was, and you sort of explained it. But you've also stood at that podium and said the tweet speaks for itself. When do you decide when a president's tweets, when his words are open to interpretation, and when those words stand on their own?
I'm sorry, can you further explain what you're at? I mean, his tweets do speak for themselves.
Okay, but you just sort of interpreted it for Peter, saying, well, he didn't mean that President Obama
No,
had him. When he
that's
said
not what I
wiretapping,
said. No, actually.
You said when he meant wiretapping,
Right.
he said it, he meant surveillance.
No, because he literally had it in quotes.
So you're interpreting the tweet for us, it sounds like.
No, in some cases I'll ask him, what did the quotes mean? And he'll say,
Did you ask about this tweet?
I did.
What did he say?
He said they were in quotes. It was referring to surveillance overall. It's something that had been referred to in other reports.
So he cited other reports in his conversation with you?
He did, yes.
So is that what he was basing that tweet on? Was other
I'm
news
not,
reports?
as I just mentioned, it was a good try, but I've already been clear on that. Yeah.
Just
a phone line.
Actually, I just have a
Go ahead,
second
Sal.
topic for you, Sean. I want to go back to this healthcare idea. Just yes or no, are CBO numbers legitimate or not?
That's not my determination to make. I'm telling, as I mentioned, it
Those
depends.
numbers are legitimate.
Hallie, it depends. There are a lot of things that see. Hold on, Hallie, you guys have like an NBC thing. Let me answer the question. I think when you look at whatever that number is, whether it's budget projections or whatever, I think there's a track record that goes along a lot of times with whether or not the projections in certain areas, whether it's unemployment, budgetary numbers, whatever, are what the track record is. All I'm suggesting to you is very clearly that the numbers that they did the last time they did healthcare were off by more than 50% when it came to the number of people insured. That's not my interpretation. That's a fact. And I think it's important for people to understand the differences.
Sean, yesterday, John McCain said the president should either provide information about the allegation he put on Twitter a week ago Saturday about his phones being tapped at Trump Tower, or retract the statement. Today's the deadline. What's the president going to do?
Well, let's be clear. The Department of Justice was asked to to send information down to Congress. It wasn't the White House that was asked to do that. Just so we're clear as far as what the request was. I understand that, and with the tweet, hold on.
As Senator McCain said,
Right.
to clear this up.
And I think if you look at the president's tweet, he said very clearly, quote, wiretapping, in quotes. There's been substantial discussion in several reports. The Brett Baer from Fox, from John's, on March 3rd, talked about evidence of wiretapping. There's been reports in the New York Times and the BBC and other outlets about other aspects of surveillance that have occurred. The president was very clear in his tweet that it was, wiretapping. That spans a whole host of surveillance types of options. The House and the Senate Intelligence Committees will now look into that and provide a report back. But I think that there has been numerous reports from a variety of outlets over the last couple months that seem to indicate that there has been different types of surveillance that occurred during the 2016 election.
And so what you're saying is the president doesn't have an obligation to provide any
No, I'm not
evidence.
saying that at all. Not at all. What I'm saying is the request that was made from the House was to the Department of Justice. I think that that's an appropriate question to ask them. What I'm telling you is, from a White House perspective, there's no question that there have been an abundance of reports regarding surveillance and other type of activities that occurred during the 2016 election.
And that leads us to believe that the president's only evidence are these
No,
reports.
that leads you to believe that. I'm saying to you, right, and I'm saying to you is that what we made clear on that Sunday was that the House and Senate Intelligence Committees have the means, the process, and the access to go in and look at the entirety of the evidence that's being presented to them and make a determination that they can report back to us. Cecilia.
I just want to clarify your answer to Major's question. So will the DOJ and or the administration comply with the deadline to supply information
Well,
today?
remember, it's the DOJ. I mean, again, it's not the request was made of the DOJ, and so it's the proper venue to ask that question of is the Department of Justice.
But surely the White House knows whether
We
there
can't
is or is not
No,
evidence
don't, you
yet.
can't, because it's interesting. In the past, whenever we've had these conversations with another agency, the accusation from the press corps is that we're interfering in something. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say that we're interfering with someone when we talk to them. When we don't talk to them, it's surely you must know. So in this major, hold on, hey, major, Cecilia's asking a question.
This is
So
to follow
please,
up on his point.
I understand
This
that.
is
I saw
from
the
the president,
TikTok.
so-
I understand it. That doesn't mean you get to jump in. Cecilia.
To follow up on Major's point, though, this is a tweet from the president. Doesn't the president have an obligation?
And he
to
does, and I
prove
think that
the
we've made it
to make
very
the evidence clear?
right,
When
and
he-
we've made it very clear that we expect the House and the Senate Intelligence Committees to do their job. I think there's a preponderance of reports that continues to come out about surveillance and actions that occurred during the 2016 election. Once they come up with their report, and it was asked earlier today, I think we can talk about the conclusions of that report. But at this time, you can't say that we're going to shift it off to the House and the Senate and then comment every day. That was the entire goal of asking them to look into this further.
But will the DOJ comply with
I-
this
that-
deadline today?
I-
thought
I-
this was
I
okay.
assume- I understand. My understanding is that they will, but again, I would ask them what their intention is, and I believe there are certain things that they can and can't do in terms of classification and stuff. But I would leave it up to the Department of Justice to answer for the Department of Justice. Caitlin.
How is the press making Obamacare look good?
Well, I think when you see some of these comparisons that occur and they talk about who's going to win and who's going to lose, it misses a lot of the competition that's going to take place. It doesn't talk about the increased choice. I mean, right now, as the president has noted, as Secretary Price has noted, in a third of all counties in 5 states, you have one choice. Those analysis that are very trying to look at how much you'll pay and how much you won't, don't take into consideration the competition that's going to occur, the choice that's going to occur. I mean, right now you have one choice in a lot of places. You have no decision about how much you're going to pay and what you're going to get. Choice allows you to determine what scale of health care you need, what kind of package is good for you, your family, or for your business. And when you look at a lot of these analysis, when you open up various major papers, they make it seem so simple. It's what are you going to get, how much are you going to get paid for in this plan, how much are you going to get paid for under the current plan. It misses an entirety of the whole process, which is that you don't have competition, number one. Number two, and the bigger point that I think the president and a lot of others are getting to, is that the system is failing on its own. It makes it seem like it's all rainbows and puppies. At the end of the day, if you have a card and you're getting a subsidy, but you're not getting care, you have nothing. And so walking into a doctor's office where you can hand them a card and say, hey, I've got a $5,000 tax subsidy. If that doctor doesn't take the care or the deductible's so high, then you really don't have anything. And so to do an apples and apples comparison is hardly an accurate analysis of what the current situation is.